So without further ado, let us go. Speaking of strong-willed women, let us go to a friend of mine, a legend in Cincinnati, the head of Learning Through Art, and a renowned singer, Kathy Wade. Welcome to Talk of the Town.
Thank you, PG. Thank you for having me.
No, we really appreciate you taking some time out of your day to talk about this important issue. And as I just mentioned, the YWCA is hosting their national town hall in Cincinnati later this month. It's titled "What Women Want." So, Kathy Wade, let's start with you. I know this is sort of a broad question, but what do women want? Where are we in 2012?
I think that, women want pay equity, of course. I think that they want defense of existing laws that guarantee reproductive rights and closing health care disparities for women and children. And I think that, making sure that we have the necessary assistance so that we can continue to take care of our families. As you know, many heads of households are women, and whatever it takes to shore us up, that's what we need.
Now, do you feel like when you were growing up, you were sort of told you can do anything, your gender's no barrier at all? I mean, you've obviously gone on to have a wildly successful and acclaimed career, and we're so glad that you're here in Cincinnati. But do you feel you were told that message from the get-go?
Absolutely. Not only by my mother, but by my grandmother and my great-grandmother, my grandmother being my hero. There was absolutely nothing that you couldn't do. And you were also told to make sure that you had those keys that you needed, being able to read and write and do math and think and listen, having those keys, making sure that you have those keys so that you can go and do whatever it is that you want to do. And one of the programs that we do, we always say, you can be anything that you want to be. And I was given that early in life, and it has stuck with me. And I share that with all of my mentees, my kids, my family, any sister that's out there. I say that all the time, that you can do anything that you want to do.
Now, one of the other statistics that Tamaya just shared, that this year, for the first time, the American workforce is made up of more women than of men for the first time in history. So obviously, we're in a very different place than we might have been in 1980 or 1950 or 1920. Do you think there's been improvement along the way in work-family balance for women? Obviously, a huge issue. You run your own organization, so you're an incredibly busy person. Do you think we've improved, society's where it needs to be in terms of allowing that work-family balance?
I think it could be a much better balance, much better balance by creating shared responsibilities of care of the care of the family and the home, and respect to of what each party brings to the table. I think that finding that balance can be difficult. You're absolutely right. I wear many hats, and it is hard. I think that if you, in finding that balance, you want to make sure that you take care of you first and foremost, because without that, you can't do the things that we have to do in terms of taking care of our families and contributing to our community. So absolutely, that balance, it's for me, it's not quite there yet. I just think that many women would probably say that as well, just being very honest with you. I think working towards that and finding it, requires all of us to, what is that line? It requires all of us to understand that it has to be a shared responsibility throughout the community.
So what is, I'm sure it's a frequent occurrence that young women in the community say, "You're Kathy Wade, I want to grow up to be just like you."
Oh, my Lord.
I promise you, I hear them say that. And I'm sure they say it directly to you too, but what advice do you give to young women and frankly to young men about, growing up to be who they want to be and achieving a healthy work-life balance and all those things?
Well, I tell them to make sure that you have your 5 keys to success: reading, writing, math, thinking, listening. I tell them to, once you get those keys, you have to do something with them. And so I always impart with them what I call my 5P plan, which is every day a prayer, practice, preparation, patience, and also perseverance. You must have those 5 things to take you where you want to go. Surround yourself with people who are going to always be supportive of what you do, and know that you can. There's nothing that stops you. Having the ability to read is absolutely, as you know, we do a program called Books Alive for Kids, and having that ability to read can take you anywhere. So education is so key, but making sure that you not only have those keys to success, but practicing those 5 things.
So I try and learn along with my listeners through this show, too. So those 5 Ps sound pretty valuable, so everyone can get out their pens and pencils. Can you take us through the 5 Ps one more time?
Sure, absolutely. Prayer. You want to begin your day reverent,
sure,
with a reflective moment, acknowledging your gratitude for a new day and the strength to continue. So the first one is prayer. And then practice. Learning is a lifelong endeavor, so you have to take every opportunity to improve all of your skills. So practice is number 2. You must be prepared. So you must prepare so that when the call comes, you are ready. And then you must be patient so that if the call doesn't come, you don't give up. And then last and most importantly, you must have perseverance so that you resolve, that your determination will be worth your waiting. 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, a lifetime, but making sure that you work hard with those 5 Ps because it will come.
I love it. The 5 Ps from Kathy Wade. I think those will be very, very valuable as we all navigate the days and weeks and months ahead. So you are the head of your organization, Learning Through Art, a tremendous organization. How can we make sure, another thing we mentioned at the beginning of the show, 10% of governors are women, 17% of our members of Congress are women, that more people in the political universe, as heads of companies, as heads of other organizations, are women in those leadership roles. Well, you do run your organization. Why is that so important, and how can we, achieve more of that?
I think it's important. I think it's important that people have to see themselves in leadership roles. So, I sit on a lot of boards of trustees. I sit on a board of trustees of one of the universities, and I always make sure that I find myself at graduation because I think it's important for people to look at that stage and see in a seat one of the trustees that, may look like them. So I think it's important that everybody has to have a seat at that table, and therefore, if you do, you that in itself is an example of where you can go. I mean, you have to see yourself. So we have to ensure that in order to do that, we are developing women leaders from industry to education to politics, with the preparation by providing them with great mentoring, employment, political, and educational opportunities, because we have to make sure that we are building the bench to create those opportunities, and we must always lift as we climb.
Okay, how you doing, Ms. Wade?
Hi.
This is Tamaya P., one of PG's his co-host today, and one of his aides in his office. Let me ask you just a quick question. You've been amazing, and I've been a fan of yours ever since elementary school. I remember you came to my school, and I most recently saw you at the Jazz Fest on stage, which was amazing to see you there.
Thank you.
One thing I want to ask you, though, is what woman, either from history or whom you know now, would you consider a hero?
As I mentioned earlier, I have to say my grandmother, and it's an interesting story because she was very active in the Colored Women's Club, number one. So I had an early audience, okay, at the Avondale Lamplighter was the group that she was in. But being in that organization and watching her work, she also had a degree in English from UC and was still worked as a domestic. But late in her life, I'd say late 60s, early 70s, she was a writer. She was finally published. She had children's stories published. Wow. So for me, I always think about that. I think about the perseverance of that continued to go forward with it, and having that as a daily reminder for me that no matter what, you can keep going.
That's incredible.
Kathy Wade, if you can you hang tight with us for we go pay some bills for a second here?
Absolutely.
All right. Well, one more question I have to get off. I have to ask you before we let you get on with your busy day. You were listening to Talk of the Town with PG Sittenfeld on 1230 The Buzz. We'll be right back.
Let's get it started in here. Let's get it started. Let's get it started.
WDBZ Cincinnati, your source for news and views you can't get anywhere else.
That's what I'm talking about.
The Buzz, your talk station.
Welcome back to Talk of the Town with PG Sittenfeld. We are so glad you are spending some of your Saturday morning with us right here on 1230 The Buzz, and we are equally delighted that Kathy Wade is joining us for our conversation as we talk about what women want and where are women in society in 2012. And Kathy, we really appreciate you hanging on. The other question I had to ask you is, I suspect many of our listeners right now at some point have had the great gift of actually getting to listen to you sing. And, you talk about empowering people and giving them a strong voice. You literally have a very strong voice. So what I've always wondered, I don't think I've ever asked you this before, when did you first sing and to your own ears you said, oh my God, I can sing, I do have a voice. What was that moment? When did that happen?
That's an interesting question. I was raised on jazz. Some people have heard this story. I was raised on jazz. Both my parents were jazz enthusiasts. My dad really liked musicians. My mother was very much into vocalists. So depending on who was off on which day, I got to hear that, While I loved the music from the 60s, I really was very immersed in jazz. So sitting up, this is interesting since the opera just did Porgy and Bess. One of the first albums that I learned was I Loved You, Porgy, Porgy and Bess soundtrack from beginning to end. And I think it's about the time of, I would say about 7, I found myself not just doing Porgy and Bess, but being able to sing along with Dave Brubeck. Everything from Take Five. So I think about, Shep and I started thinking, wow, maybe I could do this. And then by the time I got to high school, I got my very first standing ovation at Withrow High School doing what used to be sound.
I love it. Yeah.
And
I've given you a few of those in my time. I do what I actually quite like singing. The only problem is I'm not very good at it. So I remember I have thought about that moment with you of when I go to sing the first time I probably tried and it was like that felt good but it didn't sound good if you would go to sing for the first time and be like wow like I didn't know I had that in me.
You find I knew there was something, but the reality of the wow moment. I would actually have to say probably my very first competition. I was in Girls Assembly, and we used to have a talent competition, and I sang "Call Me" by Aretha Franklin.
All right.
And I thought, boy, that wasn't bad.
Well, and it's
better at it. You just keep going with it. And I just had lunch with a singer recently, and she asked, how do you find your voice? And it's like anything else in life. You have to find your voice through your experiences, through being open to what life can bring you.
Well, Kathy Wade, thank you for being a strong leader, a strong woman, a strong person, a strong Cincinnati, and thanks for joining us on Talk of the Town today.
Thanks for having me. It's been great.
We will talk to you soon. Thanks so much. That was Kathy Wade. You know her, you love her, and she certainly is a strong voice in our community. So